Terminal B at Dallas-Fort Worth hummed like a beehive that had learned to speak. Wheels rattled over polished tile, suitcases thumped. The overhead speakers crackled to life every few minutes, calling out delayed flights in a flat, bored voice. Coffee machines hissed and groaned behind a line of exhausted travelers who stared at their phones as if Wi-Fi could fix jet lag. Claire Mercer stood at the edge of that line, fingers curled around the handle of her carry-on. Her eyes burned. 12 hours in the emergency room, 2 hours in the air, and one more connection to Austin ahead of her. Her body wanted nothing but a dark room and a horizontal surface. She flexed her right hand, feeling the pull of tape over her knuckles. A thin strip of gauze showed at the edge of the bandage where she had scraped her skin on a metal bed rail during a code at 3 a.m. The antiseptic smell from the airport hand sanitizer station made her think of the hospital for half a second. Then she pushed the thought aside. Coffee first, sleep later. That was the plan. Near Gate B17, a group of kids in matching soccer uniforms sprawled on the floor, phones plugged into a tangle of chargers. A businessman checked his watch every 30 seconds. A baby cried somewhere behind Claire, the sound jagged and thin. She stepped out of line to get a better look at the board, showing departure times. Her Austin flight still blinked on time in bright green letters. Good, no surprises. Her sneakers squeaked softly as she shifted her weight. Across the concourse, a man in desert camouflage walked past. He did not stand out at first. The airport around him was full of people, all with their own stories, their own wars. But something about the way he moved tugged at Claire's attention. The way his shoulders carried an invisible pack, even though his hands were empty. The way his eyes scanned without really focusing, as if part of him was still somewhere else. He passed under a skylight face briefly washed in hard white Texas sun. His name tag read, Hayes. Though Claire did not see it yet, she just saw the small signs, the tightness around his mouth, the way he blinked a little too slow. Fatigue, dehydration, nothing she had not seen 1,000 times. She turned back toward the coffee line. The sound that followed did not belong in an airport. It was not a stumble or a scuff. It was a heavy, final thud, the sound of a full-grown body hitting tile with no attempt to catch itself. Conversation fractured. Someone gasped. A paper cup slipped from a hand, its plastic lid popping off dark coffee, spilling and spreading toward the feet of a row of chairs. Claire froze for half a second. Her brain supplied a dozen possibilities at once, slipped disc, drunken, fall, fainting spell. Her body had already decided. She let go of her suitcase and ran. The crowd responded in that strange collective way people always did. A ring opened around the fallen man, a clean circle formed, not by design, but by instinct. People stepped back. Hands flew to mouths. Phones appeared, some dialing, some recording. Claire pushed through them, brushing past a woman whispering, "Oh my God," over and over like a prayer. The man was on his back, half twisted, one arm flung out toward nothing. His camouflage blouse was wrinkled, his boots scuffed and dusted with what looked like fine sand. His eyes were closed, his chest still. Claire dropped to her knees. Tile bit into bone. There was a faint smell of coffee and something metallic, like the taste of a coin, under the tongue. She placed 2 fingers against his neck. The skin was warm, underneath it nothing. No steady push against her fingertips, no reassuring rhythm. Her world narrowed to that absence. She moved her hand to his wrist, pressing harder than most people would dare. Still nothing. "Call 911, she said, voice low and sharp. "Tell them we have an adult male in cardiac arrest at gate B17. Get an AED. There was a half second of silence, then voices broke open, everyone talking at once. I am, hold on. Does anyone know CPR? Oh God, is he dead? Claire leaned over the man's face. Up close, she could see the faint gray at the edges of his lips, the way his lashes rested too still against his cheeks. She watched for the rise of his chest, listened for any whisper of breath. Nothing. No pulse, no breathing. Her body moved before her mind could feel fear. She laced her fingers together, placed the heel of one hand in the center of his chest, found the landmark she had found thousands of times in training and in rooms that smelled like blood and bleach. She locked her elbows, shifted her knees for leverage. Her shoulders hovered directly above her hands. Then she started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. His sternum yielded under the force, then pushed back. The sound was muted by the layers of uniform and muscle, but she could feel each movement travel up her arms. People flinched at the sight, as they always did the first time they saw CPR done right. It looked violent. It was supposed to. Keep everyone back, Claire said, between counts, not looking up. Give me space. A security officer knelt beside her, breathing hard from the run. Ma'am, an ambulance is on the way. Are you medical? Yes. Are you employed here? No. Keep counting with me if you want to help. He stared for a second, then joined in, voice stumbling at first, then finding the rhythm. 15, 16, 17. Sweat slipped from Claire's temple, stinging the corner of her eye. She blinked it away without breaking the pattern. Her hands hurt. Her wrists ached where the bandage under her glove pulled against her skin. 25 compressions, 26, 27. Ribs creaked under her force. She knew the line she was walking, the trade she was making without having to think about it. Bruised bones, cracked cartilage in exchange for blood, moving oxygen-reaching cells that were already starving. 30? Claire tilted the man's head back, fingers finding his jaw, lifting his chin. She pinched his nose, sealed her mouth over his, and gave him a breath. The air she pushed in tasted faintly of coffee and metal, and something else, the dry desert smell that clung to his uniform. His chest did not rise. She adjusted, gave a second breath, watched again. The same stillness met her stare. She went back to compressions. The world around her blurred. She did not see the woman holding up a phone, hands shaking as she tried to keep the frame steady. She did not notice the small boy with the Spider-Man backpack being pulled away by his mother, or the businessman who turned pale and sat down abruptly in a nearby chair. All she heard was her own counting the slap of her palms against fabric, the faint click of something in the man's chest each time she drove downward. 1, 2, 3, 4. Someone set an AE down by her knee. A voice said, I have it, hands fumbling with the plastic case. Keep it ready, Claire said. Do not interrupt compressions until I tell you. We are almost there, ma'am, the security officer said. Paramedics are on the property. She did not answer. She focused on the weight under her hands, on the small give and rebound of his chest, on the color of his lips, the sharp angle of his jaw, the tiny scar under his chin that looked like the ghost of a childhood fall. Her muscles burned. Her shoulders felt heavy and tight. Her breath came ragged now, matching the harsh rhythm she was forcing into someone else's body. 28, 29, 30. Another breath. His chest rose a fraction this time, or maybe she imagined it. She pulled back, watching, waiting for any sign of spontaneous movement. Nothing. Her hands went back to his sternum. The overhead voice called out a boarding change for a flight to Chicago. Its cheerful cadence, absurd, over the small circle of silence where a man's life hung on the strength in her arms. At the edge of her vision, red lights flashed on the far side of the glass wall as the ambulance pulled up to the curb. Come on, she murmured under her breath, not sure if she spoke to him or to herself. Stay with me, come on. She pressed harder. The third cycle had barely started when it happened. On the downstroke of a compression, the man's body spasmed. Not just the passive bounce she was used to, but a sharp, involuntary jerk. His mouth opened in a wet, tearing gasp, lungs dragging in air with a harsh rattle. Claire froze for half a second, hands still hovering above his chest. His eyes flew open. They were a clear, startling gray, wild, and unfocused. Scanning the fluorescent lights overhead, as if he could not understand where he was. He choked, coughed, his whole frame shaking. Easy, Claire said, voice steady even as her own heart thudded hard against her ribs. You are all right. You are here. Do not try to sit up. He tried anyway, instinct pushing him upright. The security officer and another bystander helped hold him down gently, hands on his shoulders. The paramedics arrived in a rush of nylon and metal, dropping to their knees, unpacking monitors and oxygen. One of them, a tall woman with freckles, gave Claire a quick nod. You good? The paramedic asked, already reaching for the man's wrist. I got a pulse back, Claire said, moving aside, her legs suddenly unsteady. Down for about 2 minutes. No shocks delivered yet. We will take it from here. Her hands felt empty without the resistance of his ribs. She looked at them, at the faint redness across her knuckles, at the crease where the tape bent. The crowd began to breathe again. Noise seeped back into the space. Someone started crying quietly. Someone else clapped once, and then stopped, as if unsure it was appropriate. The paramedics lifted the man onto a stretcher. His gaze caught Claire's for a brief, shaky moment. Confusion clouded his features, but there was something else there, buried under the shock and the leftover darkness. He tried to speak, coughed instead, oxygen mask sliding against his face. Sir, we need you quiet, the paramedic said. You can thank her later. Claire picked up her carry-on from where it had rolled against a row of chairs. Her knees felt like they belonged to someone else. The tile under her feet seemed to tilt for a second, then leveled out. As the stretcher rolled away toward the exit, she stepped aside, pressing her back briefly against a cool support column. The adrenaline that had sharpened everything a moment ago now left a hollow ache in its wake. A TSA agent approached, eyes wide. Ma'am, they got your name right, he asked, in case the airport or you know anyone needs to contact you. They did, she said. He hesitated, then added in a lower voice. You really know what you are doing. Claire did not answer that. She just gave a small nod and started walking. The automatic doors at the end of the terminal slid open in front of her with a soft whoosh. Warm Texas air pushed inside, carrying the smell of exhaust and sun-baked concrete. She stepped through the opening out into the light, and the glass closed behind her. By the time Claire turned her key in the lock, the light outside her apartment had gone soft and dusty, the kind of late Texas afternoon that made everything look a little faded. The door stuck for a second, as it always did. She put a shoulder into it and felt it give. The familiar smell of their place met her in the narrow entryway, a mix of laundry detergent crayons and the faint tomato tang of jarred pasta sauce. "Mom." Ellie leaned around the corner from the living room, pencil in hand. A smear of graphite streaked her cheek. Her wild brown hair was pulled into a ponytail that had given up halfway through the day. "You are home early," she said, surprise brightening her face. "Did your plane crash?" Claire snorted, dropping her carry-on beside the shoe rack. "That is not how planes work," she said. "Also, please do not wish crashes on any pilot I know." Ellie shrugged and came forward for a hug. Claire wrapped her arms around the small, solid weight of her daughter and let herself breathe for a moment. The high buzz of the airport and the hard tile under her knees felt farther away here under the low ceiling and yellow kitchen light. Ellie pulled back and squinted at the taped knuckles. "Did you punch a bad guy?" "Bed rail," Claire said. "He started it." Ellie grinned, satisfied for now, and went back to the table. A half-finished poster board lay spread across it. In the center was a large red heart, drawn in marker, lopsided but enthusiastic. Arrows pointed to blue and red scribbles labeled oxygen and blood. "The circulatory system," Ellie announced as if she had been waiting for a cue. "Ms. Lopez says we have to explain how the heart keeps everything going, or else we all fall down." "Ms. Lopez is not wrong," Claire said. She slid her bag off her shoulder and hung her keys on the hook by the door. "You eat anything yet?" "There is macaroni," Ellie said. "The square kind. I did the microwave myself." Claire opened the fridge. A Tupperware container of day-old macaroni sat on the middle shelf beside a half-empty carton of milk and a jar of peanut butter. On the freezer door, a paper from the electric company peered out from under a magnet shaped like a pineapple. Next to it hung a late notice from the internet provider and a brightly colored flyer about an after-school soccer program that Ellie had circled in blue pen. She touched the edge of the electric bill with the back of her knuckles, then shut the door. "Microwave chef," she said, turning back to Ellie. "Impressive." Ellie colored in a blue vein on the poster. "Ms. Lopez says the heart is a muscle," she said. "She also says if the heart stops, everything stops." "Does that really happen, or is she just scaring us so we do our homework?" "It really happens," Claire said. She saw again the gray, around the soldier's lips, the stillness of his chest. Her palms tingled, phantom pressure blooming in the heels of her hands. "But," she added, pulling out a chair, "if someone who knows what they are doing helps fast enough, the heart can remember how to beat." Ellie nodded, serious. "So if it forgets, you remind it." "That is one way to put it," Claire said. Ellie paused, pencil hovering. "Can a heart just stop for no reason?" Claire hesitated for less than a breath. "Sometimes," she said. "Or it can look like no reason from the outside. Usually there is something underneath. Stress sickness, something in the wiring." Ellie considered this, then went back to labeling her poster. "I am going to draw a lightning bolt," she decided, "so people know it is electric." Claire smiled, though something in her chest felt tight. "Good call," she said. "Electric hearts." Later, after Ellie had been coaxed into brushing her teeth and slipping into pajamas after the lights in her room had been turned down low, except for the little nightlight shaped like a moon, Claire stood in the doorway for a moment and watched her daughter sleep. Ellie lay on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek, the other flung out fingers curled around a stuffed fox. Claire eased the door until it almost closed, leaving a narrow slice of light. In the quiet of the small kitchen, she opened her phone and saw the emails that had stacked up while she was in the air. One from the hospital scheduling system, asking for volunteers to cover another short-staffed night. One from the landlord reminding tenants about rent due dates. A promotional message from an airline about weekend getaways with smiling couples on a beach she could not afford to think about. She thumbed past the muscles in her hand, aching, and finally let the phone go dark. Sleep dragged her down almost as soon as she lay on her own bed. The mattress dipped in the familiar way under her hips, the springs complaining. For a few breaths, the world held still. The alarm ripped through the quiet long before the sun came up. Claire slapped at it until it stopped and lay there for a moment, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling. Another shift. The hospital smelled the same, no matter what time she walked in. Disinfectant and recycled air coffee and sweat. St. Gabriel Medical Center rose out of the Austin skyline in concrete and glass, its automatic doors whispering open as Claire swiped her badge and stepped through. On the wall near the entrance to the emergency department, a motivational poster showed a pair of clean hands under running water. The caption read, "Caring starts here." She tugged on a pair of gloves and stepped into the noise. Monitors beeped at different pitches. A toddler wailed somewhere behind a curtain. A nurse laughed at something a paramedic said as they transferred a patient from a stretcher. Words overlapped and piled up, forming a kind of music that was oddly calming if you knew how to listen. Hey, Mercer! Jenna, one of the charge nurses, peeled away from the nurse's station chart in hand. Her blonde hair was twisted into a knot that had already started to escape. You pick up another shift, Jenna asked. You're going to forget what your couch looks like. Already did, Claire said. We friends with sleep in this place, or no? Jenna snorted. Sleep is for outpatient, she said. I have a chest pain in Bay 3 and a kid with a possible appendicitis in 5. You want the adult or the small human? Give me the chest, Claire said. He probably bites less. Debatable, Jenna said, but she handed over the chart. The next few hours blurred into the kind of steady chaos Claire understood at a bone-deep level. She assessed triaged hung fluids, pushed meds, calmed a panicking teenager who thought his racing heart meant he was dying, talked a drunk off the edge of ripping out his IV. Between patients, she washed her hands at the sink. Water slapped against her skin, running cool over the tape on her knuckles. She caught her reflection in the stainless steel eyes, tired but clear. Behind the glass wall of a conference room down the hall, people in suits sat at a long table. She caught a glimpse of them as she passed on her way to the supply closet. Marjorie Blake sat at the head of the table posture, straight in a charcoal blazer, silver hair pulled neatly back. Beside her was Rick Dalton HR badge, clipped to his pocket, tie perfectly centered. The door was closed, but Claire could see the light of a projector casting slides on the far wall. A chart with red and green bars, a bullet point list, letters small enough that they blurred from this distance. At the bottom of one slide near the corner, she thought she saw a line of text that looked like off-premises intervention, and below it a name. Too far to read, but the letters could have been hers. A passing respiratory therapist bumped her shoulder. Sorry, he muttered, hurrying by with a ventilator. Claire stepped out of the way and went back to the supply closet. The glass wall slid behind her as the door to the conference room shut the rest of the way. Inside, under the soft hum of the air conditioning, a risk management consultant clicked to the next slide. We have had 3 incidents in the last quarter, he said, laser pointer circling a line of text. 2 minor, 1 significant. A nurse from emergency intervened in a cardiac event at Dallas-Fort Worth while off duty. The story is already picking up on social media, which increases visibility. Potential exposure is considerable if anything goes wrong. Marjorie listened, hands folded in front of her. Has there been an adverse outcome? She asked. Not in this case, the consultant said. The patient survived. However, the behavior sets a precedent. Employees acting outside our facility in uniform or not can be perceived as representatives of St. Gabriel. That opens the door to liability, particularly if outcomes are contested. Rick cleared his throat. We have a clause in our contracts about off-premises practice, he said. Scope of employment is defined by time card and campus. It is there for a reason. Marjorie looked at the screen again, head slightly tilted. Flag it, she said. If it stays a feel-good story, fine. If it escalates, I want options on my desk. Out in the hall, the overhead pager called for a rapid response in radiology. Claire jogged toward it, stethoscope bouncing lightly against her chest, the conference room already dropping out of her awareness as the familiar weight of duty settled back into place. 2 days later, the kitchen timer went off at the same moment Claire's phone started ringing. She turned off the burner first. The spaghetti had already gone past al dente into something softer, but Ellie would not mind. Steam rolled up from the pot, fogging the lower half of the window that looked out onto the parking lot. The phone trilled again on the counter screen, lit and sliding across a little puddle of water left by a rinsed cup. Ellie sat cross-legged on the living room rug poster board propped against the coffee table. She had added the lightning bolt to the heart and was now drawing tiny stick figures beside it, each with lines leading back to the red shape in the center. Mom, does the heart ever get tired of everyone needing it all the time? She called. Sometimes, Claire answered, grabbing a dish towel to dry her hands. It keeps going anyway. She glanced at the phone and saw the caller ID. St. Gabriel Medical Center. Her first thought was that someone had called in sick and they were looking for coverage. Her second was that something had gone wrong with a patient. A third thought never formed. She tapped to answer. This is Claire. A man's voice came on flat and precise. She recognized it after a moment, the way you recognize the smell of a waiting room. Ms. Mercer, this is Rick Dalton from Human Resources. The way he said her name made her stand up a little straighter without meaning to. The wooden spoon in her hand dripped sauce back into the pot in thick red drops. Is something wrong with my schedule? She asked. There was a brief pause. Somewhere on his end, paper rustled. I am calling in regard to an incident that occurred at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport on Tuesday, he said. You are aware of the event I am referring to. Not a question. He already had his answer. Claire swallowed. A man went into cardiac arrest near gate B17, she said. I performed CPR until paramedics arrived. He regained a pulse. Yes, Rick said. We have reviewed the reports. He kept going, words lining up in an orderly row that did not match the way her chest was starting to tighten. As you know, your employment contract contains language regarding the scope of your duties as a representative of St. Gabriel Medical Center. Actions taken off premises and outside of scheduled working hours are not covered under our liability policies. I was not representing the hospital, Claire said. Her fingers tightened around the spoon. I was standing in a terminal and someone collapsed in front of me. The distinction is not always clear to outside observers, Rick said, particularly when media is present. I did not call the media. Nonetheless, video of the incident has already appeared online and has been circulated broadly. Comments identify you as an emergency nurse employed by this institution. He said, this institution, as if he were talking about a building or a brand rather than a place where she had spent 12 years of her life. Claire turned the stove knob to off more to have something to do than out of any real concern for the noodles. What exactly are you saying? She asked. He took a breath. She could hear it through the line, the faint whistle in his nose. I'm calling to inform you that effective immediately, your employment with St. Gabriel Medical Center is terminated, he said. This decision is based on violation of policy regarding unauthorized medical intervention outside of facility grounds and potential exposure to legal and reputational risk. For a second, the kitchen fell away. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft scratch of Ellie's pencil in the next room, the bubbling of water in the pot all flattened into a muffled hum behind the words. Her heart thumped once hard enough to make her aware of it. You are firing me, she said as if checking his math. Your final paycheck will be issued via direct deposit, he continued as if reading from a script. Information about continuation of health benefits will be mailed to your address on file. You are required to return your ID badge, parking pass, and any other property belonging to St. Gabriel to Human Resources within 72 hours. I was the only medical person there, Claire said. It came out quieter than she meant it to. He did not have a pulse. Ms. Mercer, this is not a discussion about clinical decision-making. That is exactly what it is. Liability is the issue, Rick said. If the outcome had been negative, the hospital could have been named in a lawsuit due to your identifiable employment relationship. Our policies exist to protect both staff and the institution. He was dying on the floor. Her voice cracked on the last word. Ellie looked up from the rug, eyes catching the sharpness in her tone, then sat very still. You acted outside the boundaries of your employment agreement, Rick said. The decision has been reviewed and approved by senior leadership. It is final. She pressed her free hand to the edge of the counter to steady herself. The laminate dug into her palm. I have been there 12 years, she said. Your service has been noted, he replied. If you have questions about your benefits, HR can schedule a separate call. I understand this is difficult, but I'm required to inform you of the effective date. He repeated it. The date felt like a stamp. She did not remember everything he said after that. Phrases floated up and sank again. Transition of responsibilities, contact information, a reference to policy numbers she had signed beside on her first day and never thought about since. Do you understand, Ms. Mercer? She stared at the pot on the stove. The spaghetti had swelled and clumped together, floating in cloudy water. I understand you are firing me for saving a man's life, she said. Silence hummed faintly through the speaker. I am informing you of the termination as required, Rick said. I am not making a judgment on the moral aspects of your choice. He said the word moral like it belonged in a different language. Someone from HR will be in touch with paperwork, he added. Thank you for your time. The line clicked and went dead. Claire held the phone against her ear for a moment longer, listening to the emptiness. Then she lowered it and placed it on the counter very carefully, as if it might break. Behind her, Ellie shifted. Mom. Claire turned. Her daughter watched her from the doorway between the kitchen and the living room toes curled into the carpet. The poster board stood behind her, the red heart in the center of it bright and sure. Who is that? Ellie asked. Work, Claire said. They sounded mad. Claire tried to gather her face into something neutral. It felt like trying to fold a sheet of paper that had already been crumpled. They made a decision, she said. Like a bad one, Ellie said. Claire exhaled. It came out more like a sigh than she would have liked. We are going to be fine, she said. Go wash your hands. Pasta is ready. Ellie held her gaze for a second longer, suspicion and trust fighting in her eyes, then nodded and padded off toward the bathroom. When the bathroom door shut, Claire braced both hands on the counter and leaned over the sink. The stainless steel gleamed back at her in a warped reflection. Her hands shook. She closed her fingers into fists until the trembling stopped. On the other side of the state in San Antonio, a heart monitor beeped in a different rhythm. The room was quiet enough that Logan could hear the soft hiss of oxygen through the nasal cannula. He lay still, eyes closed, as he tried to piece together the last thing he remembered. Airport tile, the echo of distant announcements, a sudden crushing weight in his chest that had not felt like pain so much as absence, as if something essential had dropped out of him. He drew in a careful breath and opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was a bland off-white. A fluorescent light hummed. Plastic tubing trailed from his arm. His mouth tasted like cotton and salt. A monitor beside the bed flashed green waves across a black background. Beep, 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 steady now. Good, a voice said. You are awake. He turned his head. A woman stood at the foot of the bed, hands in the pockets of her white coat. Dark hair streaked with gray was pulled back into a low knot. Her badge read, Naomi Patel, MD Cardiology. Where am I? Logan asked. His voice came out rough. South Texas VA, Dr. Patel said. You came in by ambulance from Dallas-Fort Worth. How do you feel? Like I lost a fight, he said. Technically, your heart did, she said. You are on the winning side at the moment. She walked closer, checking the monitor, then his pupils with a penlight. He flinched slightly at the brightness. You went into sudden cardiac arrest in the terminal, she said. Your heart stopped beating effectively. You dropped with no prodrome, according to witnesses. No chest pain, no shortness of breath beforehand. He tried to sit up. The room tilted. He stopped. How long? He asked. From collapse to CPR initiation, about 10 seconds, she said. From collapse to return of spontaneous circulation, approximately 2 minutes. He stared at her, the numbers sliding into place. You are telling me my heart stopped, he said, and somebody just kept it going with their hands. That is correct, Dr. Patel said. She pulled a tablet from the pocket of her coat and tapped the screen. A nurse who happened to be traveling saw you go down and started compressions immediately, she went on. Airport security called 911. Paramedics arrived to find you with ongoing CPR and no shockable rhythm. They continued resuscitation and transported you here. You were intubated in the field and extubated this morning. Her words were clinical, but her eyes watched his reaction carefully. Without that nurse, she added, you would not be asking me questions. Logan let his head rest back against the pillow. The pillowcase smelled like detergent and disinfectant. His hand drifted to his chest, fingers resting lightly over the breastbone that still felt oddly tender. What is wrong with me? He asked. You have a condition called long QT syndrome, Dr. Patel said. It affects the way the electrical system in your heart resets between beats. Under certain conditions, it can lead to dangerous arrhythmias. From what we can tell, stress and exhaustion likely acted as triggers. He thought of nights in a desert he could not name out loud, of months of broken sleep, of deployment return briefings, and the hard snap of readjustment. So my own wiring tried to kill me in an airport, he said. Your wiring malfunction, she said, and someone intervened. He watched the green line rise and fall on the monitor, the small spikes that meant his heart was, at least for now, remembering its job. What is her name? He asked. Dr. Patel looked back at the tablet. Claire Mercer, she said. Emergency nurse from St. Gabriel Medical Center in Austin. He repeated the name under his breath, shaping it like coordinates he needed to remember. The nurse who came in to check his vitals looked barely old enough to rent a car. His badge read Ben in blue letters. He moved around the bed with quick, practiced motions, adjusting the IV line, tapping the bag to chase a stubborn bubble upward. You are looking better, Ben said. Color is back. That is a good sign. Logan glanced at the monitor. The numbers glowed steady, heart rate in the 70s, oxygen in the high 90s. Doctor says I owe my life to a stranger, Logan said. That true, or is she just trying to make me behave? Ben gave a quick smile. Dr. Patel is not big on exaggeration, he said. He wrapped the blood pressure cuff around Logan's arm and hit the button. The cuff tightened in slow pulses. From what I heard, it was close. The numbers on the monitor climbed as the cuff squeezed. Claire Mercer, Logan said. Saying her name made something click into place, like putting a safety back on a weapon. You know her. Ben hesitated. The cuff hissed as it released. I mean, not personally, he said. But nurses talk. Word gets around. He checked the reading and typed something into the computer on wheels. Word about what? Logan asked. Ben let out a breath through his nose, more air than sound. About how St. Gabriel treats their people, he said. About how she got canned. The word hung in the air. Logan lifted his head a fraction. She got what? Fired, Ben said. He glanced toward the door as if someone might be listening, then lowered his voice. For what she did to you. For going hands-on at the airport. Logan stared at him. That does not make sense, he said. It does if you work with administrators long enough, Ben said. Policy this, liability that. They do not like gray areas. Off-premises intervention is one big gray area. He must have seen something in Logan's face because he added quickly, Look, this is all hallway talk. I am not her boss. I am not HR. But the story going around is that she saved you and they let her go. The monitor beeped a little faster. The green line on the screen picked up its pace. Ben frowned and glanced at it. Okay, that is enough excitement for now, he said. Dr. Patel will yell at me if I let you spin up. He adjusted the flow on the IV and offered a quick apologetic half smile. Try to relax, he said. I will be back in a bit. When the door closed behind him, the room seemed smaller. Logan stared at the ceiling, but in his mind he saw tile, not acoustic panels. The cold shine of the airport floor, the sudden hole in his chest where everything had gone quiet, then hands pressing down over and over, refusing to let him sink. He thought of the training yards in Coronado, sun beating down on sand and steel, instructors walking the line while they lay face down in the surf, shouting over the roar of the Pacific. You protect the one on your left, the one on your right. They protect you. Nobody gets left to drown. The rule had never been written on paper. It had been carved into bone. Someone had protected him when he had no say in the matter. Someone had put her own body between him and the dark. Now she was out of a job because of it. The monitor beeped again a little faster. Dr. Patel stepped back into the room as if the sound had summoned her. Interesting way to test my work, she said, glancing at the numbers. Something on your mind. Your nurse, Logan said. Many nurses work here, she said. You will have to be more specific. The one who kept me alive, he said. Claire Mercer. Did she really get fired for that? Patel watched him for a moment, weighing how much to say. The lines at the corners of her eyes deepened. I do not have all the details, she said. Hospitals are complicated organisms. Decisions are not always made where the medicine happens. That is a yes, Logan said. It is a version of yes, she said. What I can tell you is that actions and consequences are not always in proportion. He pushed himself up a little on his pillows. I need to talk to her, he said. Not today, Patel said. Your heart has been through a storm. You need to let it settle. He held her gaze. This is a question of stability, she added. Not just cardiac. You have had a significant event. Major decisions are better made when your body is not still full of adrenaline. I'm not planning to storm a building, he said. Good, she said. Because I would have to write that in your chart. He huffed out a breath that was almost a laugh. She adjusted a setting on the monitor. Get some rest, she said. We can talk more about your treatment plan later and about what comes after. When she left, he stared at the green line until his eyes blurred. He replayed the brief flashes he could remember from the airport. It was mostly sound and sensation, the feeling of something heavy compressing his chest, a voice counting, the rasp in his throat when air finally forced its way back in. For a fraction of a second, a face above his brown hair pulled back, eyes steady. He did not like being in anyone's debt. It sat wrong in his gut. In his world, you evened the scales or you carried the imbalance like a stone in your pocket. He had no intention of carrying this one forever. The discharge came faster than he expected. Tests, scans, consultations. The placement of a small device below his collarbone that hummed with its own quiet promise of intervention if his heart tried to forget again. A stack of prescriptions and follow-up appointments. By the time he walked out under his own power through the front doors of the VA, the afternoon heat hit him like a soft wall. A gust of traffic air carried exhaust and the faint smell of cut grass. He stood on the curb for a moment with his discharge papers rolled in his hand, feeling the sun on his face. Every beat in his chest felt louder than it had before. He pulled out his phone. Finding the address was not hard. St. Gabriel had a website. The nurse registry was not public, but social media filled in the rest. A video from the airport. Comments full of praise. A tag that led to a photo of a woman in navy scrubs standing beside a pediatric patient, both of them holding up stickers. Her eyes were the same as in the brief flash he remembered. Focused, clear. Another search led him to a rental complex in South Austin. The name sounded nicer than the building looked when he turned into the lot. The stucco needed paint. A swing on the small playground listed to one side. He climbed the outside stairs slowly. His chest ached not sharply, more like a memory. He ignored it. Apartment 3B had a faded doormat with a pattern that might once have been flowers. A child's drawing, all purple in red scribbles, was taped crookedly to the door at kid height. He lifted his hand and knocked. Inside, something thumped. A muffled voice said, I got it. The chain slid back. The door opened a crack, then wider. Claire stood there barefoot, in jeans and a worn t-shirt, hair pulled back in a messy knot. For a second, they just looked at each other. She had seen him only as a dying man on a floor, eyes closed. Now his were very much open. Up close, he could see the faint lines at the corners of her mouth, the shadow of fatigue under her eyes. The bandage was gone from her knuckles, leaving pink skin where it had rubbed. Claire Mercer, he asked. Her gaze flicked over his face, then down to the edge of the bandage, peeking from under the collar of his shirt. If you are here to serve papers, you have the wrong person, she said. Her voice carried a tired humor. I am fresh out of anything to sue for. I am not a lawyer, he said. My name is Logan Hayes. Nothing moved in her expression for a heartbeat. The guy from the airport, he added. You kept my heart going when it decided it was done. Something shifted, then a small change behind her eyes. You are supposed to be resting, she said. Rest is boring, he said. Also, I needed to say thank you. She glanced past him as if checking the walkway for cameras or microphones, then opened the door a little wider. A girl of 9 or so hovered in the hallway behind her, half hidden by the frame. She had Claire's eyes and a streak of marker on her forearm. "This is Ellie," Claire said. "Ellie, this is Logan. He is from the airport." Ellie tilted her head. "The one who fell down," she said. "That would be me," Logan said. "Sorry for the scare." She considered him, then nodded as if she had decided he was acceptable. Claire stepped back, giving him room to enter. "Come in," she said. "We were just about to ruin some leftovers." The apartment was smaller on the inside than Logan expected. The living room and kitchen shared the same narrow space. A sagging gray couch faced a secondhand television. The kitchen table was pushed close to the wall, 2 mismatched chairs tucked under it. Crayon drawings covered the fridge, held up by magnetic fruit. A pot on the stove sent up the faint, tired smell of reheated tomato sauce. Logan wiped a damp spot from his shoe on the doormat before stepping fully in. "Water?" Claire asked. "It is the only thing in here that is doctor approved." "Water is fine," he said. She pulled 2 glasses from the cabinet, filled them from the tap, and handed him one. The glass was chipped at the rim. He turned it until the chip faced away from his mouth. Ellie climbed back onto the rug, where her poster board still lay. The red heart in the center had grown since he saw it in the doorway lines of blue and purple, branching out like a map. "You really fell down at the airport?" she asked without looking up. "I really did," Logan said. He eased into one of the chairs. It creaked under his weight. "Do not recommend it." "Ms. Lopez says if your heart stops, everything stops," Ellie said. "You are lucky my mom was there." Claire closed the cabinet a little harder than necessary. "Ellie," she said. "It is true," Ellie replied, tracing another vein. Logan took a sip of water. The tap had a faint metallic tang. He set the glass down. "Your mom is the only reason I'm sitting in your kitchen," he said. "I know that." Claire leaned back against the counter, crossing her arms over her chest. "You doing all right now?" she asked. "They fix your wiring?" "They installed a backup plan," he said, tapping lightly near the bandage on his chest. "Little device in here to shock me if my heart tries to quit again." "That is fancy," Ellie said. "You are kind of a robot." "Do not tell my team," he said. "They will want to push the buttons." Ellie smiled at that, then went back to coloring. Claire watched him, eyes tracing the edge of the bandage. "You should not be walking upstairs yet," she said. "If I can walk across Helmand, I can handle 1 flight in Austin," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Those words mean something," she said. "I am so tired I am not asking what." He hesitated, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Dr. Patel told me what happened," he said. "How fast you started, how long you kept going." She said 30 seconds slower, and I would not be me anymore. Claire looked at the floor between them. "I saw a guy on the ground with no pulse," she said. "It is what I do." "You were not on shift," he said. "Human bodies do not check my schedule," she replied. He watched the way her fingers dug into the sleeves of her t-shirt, the slight tremor that ran through them and stopped. "Most people wait," he said. "They freeze, they hope someone else steps in." "This is not most people," she said. I still had my hospital badge in my pocket. Habit. Maybe that helped. He set his glass down carefully. "I know you did not do it for a thank you," he said. "I get that. In my world, you move because someone needs you, not because you expect recognition." "Exactly," she said. "But I am not built to ignore someone who saved my life, he said. "That does not sit right." She let out a breath that was close to a laugh, but not quite. "You want to even a score?" she said. "Something like that," he said. She glanced toward Ellie, then back at him. "You heard what happened," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," he said. "They fired me," she said. Her voice was steady, but her jaw clenched on the last word. 2 days after the airport. Phone call in my kitchen. No meeting. No discussion. Ellie's pencil paused. She looked over without turning her head all the way. "They said liability," Claire went on. "Scope of practice, policy, all the greatest hits." "You saved someone," Logan said. "They see it as a risk I was not authorized to take," she said. "Off premises, off the clock, out of their control." He sat back, taking that in. The anger that had been a slow heat since Ben's comment at the hospital shifted into something sharper. "How long were you there?" he asked. 12 years, she said. "Started as a baby nurse right out of school. Worked nights so I could be with her during the day." She nodded toward Ellie. "Figured loyalty meant something," Claire added. "Turns out loyalty is mostly a one-way street." Ellie spoke quietly from the rug. "Are we not supposed to talk about this in front of me?" she asked. Claire forced a small smile. "You live here," she said. "You get a vote." Ellie chewed on her bottom lip. "Are we going to have to move?" she asked. "That depends," Claire said. "On a lot of things. On unemployment. On whether anyone else wants a nurse with a big red flag on her file." Logan felt the way the room tightened around that thought, the stack of bills on the counter, the peeling paint near the vent, the way Claire stood like someone braced for impact. People are talking about what you did, he said. In a good way. People on the internet love a story for a day, she said. Then they move on. Not all people on the internet are equal, he said. She gave him a look that said she was too tired for riddles. What are you going to do exactly? She asked. He glanced at Ellie again. The girl was watching him with clear eyes, now poster forgotten. I am going to make sure the right folks know the full picture, he said. That is all. Are you planning on leading a protest through their lobby? She said. Not my style, he said. But I know people who know how to make noise when something is wrong. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I do not need you to rescue me, she said. I know, he said. You rescued me. He let the words sit there between them. Ellie shifted the floorboard under her, creaking softly. I'm not asking for permission to be grateful, he added. I am telling you I'm not walking away and pretending this is fine. She looked as if she might argue. Instead, she exhaled slowly and rubbed her hand over her face. I do not even know where to start with all of this, she said. So if you are determined to do something, just do not put my kid in the middle of it. I will not, he said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. All right, she said. Water is on the house. That is as far as my hospitality budget stretches today. He stood. Thank you, he said. For the water, she asked. For the 2 minutes, he said, and the extra years that came with them. A flicker of something moved across her face at that. You are welcome, she said. On his way out, Ellie stepped closer to him, bare feet silent on the laminate. Are you going to fall down again? She asked. I am going to try not to, he said. You should not, she said. It freaked everybody out. I noticed, he said. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her poster. The heat outside felt heavier when he stepped into it, as if the air itself had gained weight. He walked down the stairs slowly, one hand on the rail. His chest twinged once in warning, then settled. At the bottom, he stopped under the thin shade of a scraggly tree and pulled out his phone. The first call went to a number he knew by heart. It rang twice. Reed, a voice answered, deep and rough around the edges. Marcus, it is Logan, he said. There was a pause. In the background, he heard the echo of a large room and the distant thump of weights. Last I heard, you were in the sandpit, Marcus said. You stateside now. VA in San Antonio, Logan said. Got escorted there by paramedics. Marcus grunted. That sounds like a story, he said. A nurse at Dallas-Fort Worth kept me alive, Logan said. Off duty, off the clock. She was traveling home. She saw me go down, started CPR, did not stop until the medics took over. That is what you hope for, Marcus said. Someone who runs toward the fall. Her hospital fired her for it, Logan said. Silence crackled on the line for a moment. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had lost the casual tone. Say that again, he said. St. Gabriel in Austin, Logan said. They terminated her for unauthorized intervention off premises, liability concerns. Hell, Marcus said, the word low and precise. You are sure? I talked to her in her kitchen, Logan said. 12 years in their emergency department, and they cut her loose over policy language. He heard Marcus move the scrape of a chair on concrete. What do you need from me? Marcus asked. Visibility, Logan said. Your group has reach. People listen when Iron Shield raises an issue. I want this on your radar. Send me her name and the hospital details, Marcus said. I will loop in our legal. If we put out a statement, it will be tight. Her name is Claire Mercer, Logan said. St. Gabriel Medical Center, Austin, Texas. I will start digging, Marcus said. And Logan. Yeah. Do not let this spin you into a hole, Marcus said. You got enough going on in that chest. I am managing, Logan said. They installed the defib, Marcus asked. They did, Logan said. Good, Marcus said. I will call you when I have something. Logan ended the call and opened his contacts again. The next number he dialed belonged to a reporter he trusted less in theory than in practice, but she had stood in enough hot zones with his team that he knew where her lines were. Lena Cho, she said when she picked up. He could hear city traffic on her end, a horn blaring somewhere nearby. Lena, it is Logan Hayes, he said. She let out a short breath. You trying to give my assignment editor a heart attack popping up like that, she said. Last I had, you were on the other side of the planet. Almost stayed there permanently, he said. A nurse in Dallas had other plans. He told the story again. This time he kept it tighter, bare lines without extra detail. Collapse, hands, 2 minutes, firing. By the time he finished, Lena had stopped moving. The sounds of the street faded. You sure you want this out there? She asked. I am not interested in a puff piece about me, he said. This is about her. Hero nurse saves soldier loses job, Lena said slowly. You know how that sounds to my boss. I know how it sounds to anyone with sense, he said. He heard her pen scratching on something. Text me her info, she said. Name hospital, any documentation you have. I will pitch it clean. Be careful with her, kid, he said. I am not kicking in her door with a camera crew, Lena said. I am not that kind of television. He believed her. After the call, he opened the browser on his phone and navigated to a forum where he spent more time reading than posting. It was a place where veterans and active duty spoke plainly behind usernames and avatars, where requests for help, rides to appointments, and job leads sat beside war stories and bad jokes. He clicked on the box to start a new thread. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Then he began to type. He did not dress it up. He did not add flourishes. He laid out the facts as he knew them. A sudden collapse in Terminal B, a nurse who did not wait, the doctor's estimate about 30 seconds, 1 minute brain cells, the termination call in a small kitchen that smelled like pasta and fear. At the end, he wrote only one sentence. She kept me alive. Now she is out of a job because of it. Her name is Claire Mercer, and she deserves better. The first reply appeared under Logan's post before he had even closed his phone. It was a single line from a user named Old Corpse Doc. If what you wrote is accurate, that nurse is a hero, and that hospital is out of its mind. By the time Logan reached his truck, there were 12 more responses. By the time he pulled into his motel lot and killed the engine, the thread had grown to 3 pages. He scrolled through them, sitting in the parked truck, the interior slowly heating under the afternoon sun. The comments came from everywhere. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. Some active, some retired. A few carried small colored icons that showed they were also nurses, medics, or doctors. I work nights in an ER. If admin tried this at my place, half the staff would walk. My brother lived because a stranger started CPR on a sidewalk. Tell this Claire she has a whole platoon behind her. Name and hospital, please. People need to know who thought this was acceptable. Logan had already given both. He watched as users began tagging organizations he knew. Veterans groups, nursing associations, local news stations. In a small apartment in South Austin, Claire was rinsing plates when her phone chimed on the counter. She wiped her wet hands on a dish towel and picked it up, expecting another auto reply from a job application. The notification on the screen was different. A friend from the hospital Mara had sent a link. Saw this? Do you know about it? Claire tapped the link. A forum she did not recognize loaded on the screen. The post at the top was long. Her eyes skipped at first, trying to understand the shape of it. Then she saw her own name. A nurse at Dallas-Fort Worth kept me alive. Off duty, off the clock. She read every word, the description of the airport floor, the doctor's estimate about 30 seconds and 1 minute, the mention of her kitchen, and the call from Rick wrapped into a sentence that felt too neat for the way it had landed. She reached the last line and had to put the phone down for a moment. Her fingers had gone numb. Ellie sat at the table behind her knees, pulled up on the chair, eating leftover macaroni with a fork. She was watching an educational video on the tablet with one earbud in the narrator explaining in a cheerful voice how clouds formed. Everything okay? Ellie asked around a mouthful. Fine, Claire said. Her voice sounded thin, even to herself. Eat your food. It is getting cold. The tablet on the table chimed as a new video suggestion popped up. Claire's phone chimed again. Another message, then another. Her social media app had small red badges on it when she opened it. Tags mentions people she had not heard from in years, sending short, breathless notes. Is this you? On her screen, a shaky video played. The tile floor, the circle of legs, a woman rushing into the frame and kneeling beside a man in camouflage. The resolution was low, but Claire recognized the way her own shoulders set when she began compressions. She heard her own voice counting sounding more distant than it had in her head. Mom, Ellie said. Claire realized she had stopped moving. The faucet was still running. Water spilled over the edges of the plate she held and dripped onto the floor. She shut off the tap and set the plate on the counter. Sorry, she said. Slippery fingers. At St. Gabriel, in the office of Iron Shield, on a news desk editorial chat, the same video began to circulate. Lena sat in a cubicle that looked like any other on the outside, but had an entire world crammed into its shelves. Old press badges, a chipped mug with a foreign logo, stacks of notebooks. She watched the footage twice without speaking, chin propped on her hand. The story Logan had told on the phone settled into the images in front of her. Hero nurse saves soldier loses job, she wrote at the top of her notes. Then she crossed out soldier and wrote SEAL instead. She knew her editor. She knew the audience. Her pitch meeting was quick. She laid out the facts, offered the video, mentioned the Iron Shield as a possible on-the-record source. Her editor frowned. Do we have confirmation from the hospital? He asked. Not yet, Lena said, but they will answer the phone once we start asking the right questions. We do not want to just repeat outrage from a forum, he said. Get documentation, the termination if you can, witnesses from the airport, the doctor. I do not want this falling apart on air. I will get them, Lena said. At Iron Shield, Marcus leaned over the desk of his communications director, a woman with scarred knuckles and a jaw that clenched when she read. This is the one I told you about, he said, pointing at Logan's post on her screen. Put it in the queue. I want a response drafted in plain language and out by morning. You want us to take a side, she said. I want us to tell the truth, he said. If we say we stand with the people who have our backs, this is what it looks like. Claire tried to ignore the growing noise. She turned off notifications on her phone. She did not open the tags. She focused on filling out online applications for nursing jobs in clinics and urgent care centers. Each one asked if she had ever been terminated. She hovered over the yes and no buttons longer than she cared to admit. In the morning, Mara called again. You seen the news? Mara asked. No, Claire said. Turn on channel 7, Mara said. Now. Claire found the remote under a couch cushion and clicked the television on. The local anchor's smooth voice rolled over a clip from the airport video as it played again, this time with a banner along the bottom of the screen. Nurse saves veteran at DFW, loses job days later. A photo of Claire appeared beside it. It was one the hospital had used for a staff newsletter years ago. Her hair was shorter in it. She was smiling at a child who held a balloon. Ellie drifted in from her room in an oversized t-shirt, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Is that you? She asked, squinting at the screen. Claire stared at the image, then at the shaky footage beside it. Sort of, she said. They are talking about you on television, Ellie said. I see that, Claire said. The anchor cut to Lena, who stood on a sidewalk in front of St. Gabriel, microphone in hand. Behind her, the hospital's logo gleamed on the glass entrance. According to multiple sources, Lena said, Nurse Claire Mercer of Austin was terminated from her position at St. Gabriel Medical Center after performing life-saving CPR on an off-duty basis at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. The hospital cites policy concerns. Others say it raises serious questions about how institutions treat frontline medical staff. A clip of Marcus played next, seated in front of a wall lined with framed unit patches. She did what every medic and corpsman I have ever served with would do, he said. She saw a man go down and she went to work. If a hospital punishes that, they send a message to every nurse who is ever faced with that choice. On the screen, a quote from St. Gabriel appeared. It was a short statement full of careful words. The hospital valued its staff. The hospital appreciated acts of courage. The hospital could not comment on individual personnel matters. Claire muted the sound. Do you not want to hear it? Ellie asked. I already know what they say when they are not on camera, Claire said. In the days that followed, nothing about her actual life changed in any practical way. The bills on the fridge did not magically disappear. The balance in her checking account did not rise. The job boards did not stop asking the same questions. Around her, things shifted. A camera crew came to the complex one afternoon and parked at the edge of the lot. Claire saw them through the slats of the blinds and stayed inside, heart beating faster than it needed to. They waited until it became clear she would not come out, and then left. In front of St. Gabriel, people began to gather. At first, it was only a handful. A veteran in a faded field jacket, a woman in blue scrubs holding a sign that said, Let nurses save lives. A teenager with a handmade poster that read, People over policy. The next day, there were more. Some wore shirts with Iron Shield's logo. Some wore stethoscopes around their necks. Cars honked as they passed. Someone brought a thermos of coffee and a box of cheap donuts. Someone brought candles and set them along the sidewalk when the sun went down. Inside the hospital, Marjorie watched live footage on her office computer. The protesting voices were muffled through the glass, but the sight of them pressed against the clean lines of the building made her throat feel tight. She closed the browser and opened her email. Messages from donors glared back at her. Margaret, we are troubled by this story. Please advise. Until this matter is clarified, the Foundation will pause disbursement of committed funds. My father died at your hospital and was treated with great care by your nursing staff. It is difficult to reconcile that memory with current reports. She leaned back in her chair and pinched the bridge of her nose. In the conference room, Rick stood in front of a screen showing graphs of online sentiment. The line that represented negative mentions had begun to climb like a mountain. We are losing control of the narrative, he said. If we do not respond clearly, others will define it for us. So we respond, a board member said. We are not villains. We have policies that exist for a reason. We could highlight our commitment to training, another suggested. Reframe this as a conversation about the importance of doing CPR correctly. We cannot admit wrongdoing, the legal counsel said. That opens us to litigation from every direction. Marjorie listened, the words buzzing around her like flies. Set up a press conference, she said finally. We will present our position in a calm and reasonable way. We will remind people of our record. We will not allow this to become a referendum on our entire institution. The conference took place in a bright room with a long table and a St. Gabriel banner behind it. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled the chairs, notebooks open, microphones resting on their laps. Rick sat at the center with the hospital's legal counsel to his left and the head of communications to his right. His tie was knotted tighter than usual. Thank you for coming, he began. His voice echoed slightly in the room. St. Gabriel Medical Center is committed to the highest standards of patient care and employee conduct. Recent media coverage has mischaracterized our internal policies and our response to an off-duty incident involving a former employee. He spoke in measured sentences about protocol, about the need for clarity about protecting patients and staff from unintended consequences. A hand went up in the third row. "Mr. Dalton," Lena said, without waiting to be called on. "You mentioned protecting patients. In this case, the patient is a Navy SEAL who credits this nurse with saving his life. How does firing her protect him?" Rick shifted in his seat. "Our policies are designed to address a wide range of scenarios," he said. "Individual cases are complex. It is important not to reduce them to sound bites." "Is it accurate that Ms. Mercer was terminated less than 48 hours after the event?" another reporter called out. "I am not at liberty to discuss personnel decisions," he said. A reporter near the aisle raised her voice. "If Ms. Mercer had walked past and done nothing," she said, "would she still have a job?" The question hung in the air. Rick opened his mouth, then closed it. A flush crept up his neck. "Our employees are expected to conduct themselves in accordance with policy," he said finally. "That includes understanding the limits of their role inside and outside the facility." "So the message is that following policy is more important than saving a life," Lena said. "That is not what I said," he replied quickly. "It is what many people are hearing," she said. The communications director leaned toward him, whispering, but the microphones on the table picked up the faint hiss of her voice. "Stay on script," she murmured. Rick squared his shoulders. "Policies exist to protect everyone involved," he said. "Without them, there is chaos. We cannot have staff presenting themselves as representatives of St. Gabriel in uncontrolled environments." The phrase landed badly. A low murmur ran through the room. Lena repeated it, pen moving. "Uncontrolled environments," she said. "You mean like an airport terminal where someone has stopped breathing?" Rick's jaw tightened. "We are done here," he said. He stood, but the cameras were still rolling. In homes and offices and crowded waiting rooms, viewers watched his last sentence replayed in slow motion. "Policies exist to protect everyone. We cannot have staff presenting themselves as representatives in uncontrolled environments." The clip hit the internet within the hour. Someone set it side by side with the video from the airport. On one half of the screen, Claire knelt on cold tile with her hands on a stranger's chest. On the other, Rick sat under soft lights talking about control. The clip from the press conference did what the airport video alone had not quite managed. It tipped something over. Claire saw it first as a still image on her phone. Someone had sent a screenshot, her on the left, in the grainy recording from Terminal B hair pulled back, shoulders set. Rick on the right, clean and crisp, behind a table lips caught halfway through the phrase, "uncontrolled environments." She did not press play, not yet. Ellie sat at the table with a bowl of cereal, reading the back of the box with the concentration of a lawyer reviewing a contract. The morning light from the kitchen window made her hair look almost copper. "Can we get the kind with marshmallows next time?" Ellie asked. "We can get the kind that is on sale," Claire said, thumb hovering over the video. The phone buzzed again, a message from Mara. He just made it worse. Claire gave in and tapped the screen. The audio from the conference room spilled out into the small apartment. The sound of camera shutters, the slight echo of Rick's voice. The words she had already read somehow worse when matched with his face. "Policies exist to protect everyone. We cannot have staff presenting themselves as representatives of St. Gabriel in uncontrolled environments." The video cut to a split screen. Claire in the airport saying, "Call 911," with her hands already moving, then back to Rick under the soft lights. A banner at the bottom of the clip read in block letters, "Hospital defends firing nurse who saved hero." Ellie set down her spoon. "They keep saying your name," she said, "and they keep saying fired." Claire locked the phone and set it face down on the counter. "They like repeating themselves," she said. "Are they going to unfire you?" Ellie asked. Claire managed a hollow smile. "That is not how it works," she said. Ellie frowned. "It should be," she said. By midday, the protest outside St. Gabriel had doubled. The camera angles on news channels widened to show more people. Hand-drawn signs had gotten more creative. "Hands save lives, not policies. If she walks, we walk." A man wore a t-shirt that said, "Uncontrolled environment," with a picture of an ER bay underneath. Inside the hospital, Marjorie's inbox filled faster than she could delete. The subject lines blurred together. Donation on hold. Phone lines jammed again. Disappointed and reconsidering. She skimmed the latest statement from Iron Shield, each sentence its own small hammer. "We call on St. Gabriel to reconsider its actions regarding Nurse Claire Mercer. We ask donors and community partners to hold this institution to the standards it claims to uphold. We stand with the medical professionals who run toward crises instead of away. A link at the bottom led to a petition that had started as a simple form on a veterans group website. The count beside it ticked upward every time she refreshed the page. 30,000, 35, 40. Downstairs in a break room, meant for staff, a television mounted in the corner played the coverage on low volume. Nurses sat in plastic chairs on their short breaks, sipping coffee from hospital-branded cups. "Remember when Rick said this would blow over?" one of them muttered. "Remember when they said what happened to Claire was an isolated case?" another replied. Jenna shook her head and took a swallow from her mug. "She was always going to get in trouble for doing the right thing," she said quietly, but I just did not think it would be this big." "You think they are going to cave?" a younger nurse asked. "They are going to do something," Jenna said. "They do not like this kind of attention, not when the donors start talking." At the VA in San Antonio, Logan watched from a waiting area with a paper wristband still snug around his arm. He had come back for a follow-up on the device under his collarbone. The pocket of his shirt bulged slightly where it sat. The sound on the wall, mounted television was off, but he did not need it. The images were enough, the protest, the split screen. Someone had added bold white subtitles on the clip of Rick that read "Policy over Life." He watched the footage, looped twice, then pulled his phone from his pocket. He was halfway through typing a message to Marcus when another text came in. "She is getting calls," it read. "Just heard from a nurse inside. Admin is nervous." He hoped nervous was only the beginning. In Austin, Claire did her best to live around the storm, like working around a broken cabinet door that would not close. She took Ellie to school, spent hours on the couch with her laptop open, to job boards, tightened and loosened her jaw as she scanned listings that all sounded the same. Full-time RN needed. Previous ER experience preferred. Must be a team player. She filled out applications. She hit submit. Sometimes she received an auto-generated "thank you for your interest." Mostly she received silence. The phone rang less often now that she had stopped answering calls from unknown numbers. When it vibrated one afternoon with a familiar contact name on the screen, she hesitated before picking up. "Hey, Mara," she said. She held the phone between her ear and her shoulder as she wiped crumbs from the kitchen counter into her palm. "Are you sitting down?" Mara said. "Should I be?" Claire asked. "Administration just had an emergency board meeting," Mara said. "I heard it from Jenna, who heard it from someone in risk. They are reconsidering." "Reconsidering what exactly?" Claire asked. "You?" Mara said. "The whole thing. Marjorie is in full damage control. I think you're going to get a call." "I have been getting a lot of calls," Claire said. "Some of them want to interview me. Some of them want me to be a symbol." "These ones want you back," Mara said. Claire stopped sweeping. The crumbs fell from her hand back onto the counter. "I have to go," she said. "Claire," Mara said. "Whatever happens, you did nothing wrong." The words were kind. They did not change the stack of bills under the magnet on the fridge. That evening, after Ellie had finished her math worksheet and set it on the table for Claire to sign, the phone rang again. The caller ID showed St. Gabriel Medical Center, but not the general line. An internal number that had not appeared since she was taken off the schedule. Claire touched the screen. "This is Claire," she said. "Ms. Mercer, this is Margaret Blake," a voice replied. "I am the Chief Executive Officer at St. Gabriel. Do you have a moment to speak?" Claire leaned against the counter. Her knees felt oddly loose. "I suppose I do," she said. "First," Marjorie said, "I would like to acknowledge that this call is overdue." The polished cadence she had used in public was softened now by something closer to fatigue. "The last few days have made it clear that our handling of your situation was flawed," she continued. "In attempting to manage risk, we failed to take into account the full context of your actions and your record." "Flawed," Claire repeated. The word sat strangely in her mouth. "We have reviewed your file, your performance history, and the circumstances surrounding your termination," Marjorie said. "We have also consulted with external advisors and stakeholders." "Stakeholders," Claire said. "Community partners," Marjorie corrected gently. "Physician leaders, representatives from nursing. It is clear you have made a significant impact here over 12 years. Ellie watched from the kitchen table, pencil still in her hand. "We would like to offer you reinstatement," Marjorie said. "Effective immediately." Claire stared at the small crack in the countertop laminate. "In my old position?" she asked. "In an elevated one," Marjorie said. "Senior emergency nurse. You would have more say in clinical protocols and staff training. It comes with a salary increase." Claire let a few seconds pass before asking, "How much of an increase?" 15% above your previous rate," Marjorie said. "Additionally, we are prepared to offer a one-time payment of $25,000 in recognition of the stress this has caused." The number hit Claire like a physical sensation. 25,000. She pictured it as line items without meaning to. Months of rent, the balance on a credit card that had carried too many groceries and copays. Ellie's soccer sign-up flyer still hanging under a magnet, suddenly not impossible. "We will also be issuing a public apology," Marjorie said. A statement retracting any implication that your actions were inappropriate. We will make it clear that your intervention saved a life. On the television in the living room, the sound was off, but a banner crawled across the bottom of a news channel. Some 9 Gabriel under fire. Claire could see her own face in the corner of the screen, the staff newsletter photo again. Why now? She asked. Marjorie paused. Because we were wrong, she said, and because continuing to be wrong helps no one. Claire almost laughed at that. The sound made it to the back of her throat and stopped. You told your HR guy to fire me for doing my job, she said. Mr. Dalton was following policy as it was interpreted at the time, Marjorie said. The responsibility for that interpretation is mine. The admission landed with an odd weight. We would like the chance to correct it, Marjorie added, to bring you back and move forward. Move forward, Claire said. Ms. Mercer, Marjorie said. Claire, this is not just about public image. We need nurses like you in that department, people who act decisively when seconds matter. Claire looked at Ellie, who sat very still, pretending not to listen. I need to see this in writing, Claire said. The position, the salary, the bonus, the apology. Of course, Marjorie said. We can have a formal offer letter in your email within the hour. Take the time you need to review it. If you have questions, you can call me directly. She gave a direct number, then added, Whatever you decide, I want you to hear this from me. You should not have been made to feel punished for saving a life. The call ended with the usual polite phrases. Claire set the phone on the counter and did not move. Ellie slid off her chair and patted over in her socks. Was that them? She asked. Yes, Claire said. Are they fixing it? Ellie asked. Claire thought of the word flawed, of the extra zeros on 25,000. They are trying, she said. The laptop sat open on the small table, the job board page still glowing on the screen. Behind it, the fridge hummed. The corner of the electric bill curled. Her email pinged. New message from HR Dept St. Gabriel Medical Center. Subject reinstatement offer. She sat down at the table and clicked. The offer letter was 3 pages of dense text. Position title, annual salary, bonus amount, benefits. A paragraph about their sincere regret for any distress caused. Attached was a draft of the public statement. The hospital acknowledged that its initial response had not reflected the heroic nature of Ms. Mercer's off-duty actions. It praised her swift and skilled intervention and reiterated their deep respect for the nursing profession. Is that about you? Ellie asked, leaning close enough that her hair brushed Claire's shoulder. It is, Claire said. She scrolled to the bottom where a blank line waited for her name. Sign below to accept. Outside, a car door slammed. Somewhere in the building, someone laughed. A siren wailed faintly on a distant street. Claire rubbed the back of her neck and read the letter again, line by line. Claire read the letter a 3rd time, then a 4th. The words did not change. Senior emergency nurse, 15% increase, $25,000 deposited within 10 business days. Public apology circulated to media outlets and posted on the hospital website. From the corner of her eye, she saw Ellie's gaze move line by line along with hers, even though the girl had no real interest in salary structures. That is a lot of numbers, Ellie said. It is, Claire said. Does it fix stuff? Ellie asked. It fixes some things, Claire said. On paper. Ellie chewed the inside of her cheek, the way she did when she worked through a math problem. Will we still have our apartment? She asked. An internet and cereal that is not the boring kind. If I take this, those would be easier to keep, Claire said. Ellie traced the edge of the trackpad with one finger. If you go back there, she said carefully, are they going to be nice now, or just not mean on television? Claire closed the laptop a few inches enough to dim the screen, but not enough to click it shut. I do not know, she said. She stood and crossed to the fridge. The electric bill sat under its magnet, accusing in black and white. The numbers on it were not large enough for a news story, but they occupied more space in her head than the total on the offer letter. Behind her, Ellie asked in a smaller voice, Did you do something wrong? Claire turned. No, she said. I did something that scared people who have more to lose on paper than I do. That is different. Then they should say sorry, Ellie said. They are trying, Claire said. She picked up her phone and stepped into the hallway between the kitchen and the bedroom. The walls were close enough that she could touch both with her fingertips if she wanted to. She scrolled to the number Marjorie had given her and hit call. It rang twice. Blake, came the voice on the other end. This is Claire, she said. Thank you for getting back to me so quickly, Marjorie said. Have you had a chance to review the offer? I have, Claire said. She looked at the bedroom door. Inside her bed sat unmade a laundry basket, half full at the foot. Nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic, just the shape of a life. It is generous, she added. We value you, Marjorie said. We want you back in the department. Claire was quiet for a few seconds. I appreciate the apology, she said, and the fact that you are willing to say out loud that you were wrong. Marjorie exhaled. The sound came through the line softer than her speaking voice. I mean it, she said. You were put in an impossible position because our policies did not anticipate reality. That is on us. There is something I keep circling, Claire said. Since you called. What is that? Marjorie asked. You did not change your mind because you discovered new information, Claire said. You had the facts from the start. Patient alive. No harm done. 12-year record. You changed your mind because everyone else saw what you did to me. We changed our mind because we reflected, Marjorie said. The public attention accelerated that process. That is one way to describe a fire under your chair, Claire said. On the other end, silence settled for a moment. Claire, Marjorie said quietly, what will it take for you to trust us again? That was the center of it. Not the money, not the title, not even the apology, drafted so carefully by people who were paid to weigh each word. Claire thought of the call from Rick in her kitchen, the tone in his voice when he said termination, the clean way the hospital had excised her from its body, leaving her to deal with the bleeding. You cannot buy that, she said. Not with a new badge, not with a direct deposit. People make mistakes, Marjorie said. Institutions make mistakes. What matters is how we correct them. I have seen how you correct them, Claire said. You wait until it costs more to be wrong than it does to admit it. That is not the only truth about this place, Marjorie said. I know, Claire said. I know the good parts. I have lived them night after night. She rubbed a thumb over a small chip spot in the paint on the wall. But you showed me where I stand when doing the right thing makes your life harder, she said. I was the first thing you removed. We are offering to bring you back, Marjorie said. And next time, Claire asked, if there is another situation that your policies do not anticipate, do I spend every shift wondering if the next off-script thing I do is the one that gets me thrown away again? There was no immediate answer. We can work on policy revisions, Marjorie began. I am not interested in helping you fix your protocols from the inside so that no one else goes through what I did, Claire said. Not when I'm still covered in the dust from the last time. She realized as she spoke that the decision had already settled inside her. She was only now hearing the words that went with it. I am saying no, she said. On the other end, she heard the soft sound of an intake of breath. I see, Marjorie said. I am grateful you admitted you were wrong, Claire said. I am grateful you are changing the policy. I hope it protects the next person you are tempted to punish, but I am not coming back. You are sure? It was not quite a question. I am, Claire said. There was another pause, shorter this time. Then I will instruct HR to note that the position has been declined, Marjorie said. The apology will still be issued as written. Good, Claire said. That matters. For a moment, she heard only the faint buzz of the line. I wish you well, Claire, Marjorie said. Wherever you go next, they will be lucky to have you. The call ended on that. No corporate closing, no scripted phrase. Claire lowered the phone and stared at the dark screen. Her heart beat faster than it had a minute before. Not in the way that concerned cardiologists, but in the way that came after stepping off a high place on purpose. In the kitchen, Ellie fidgeted with her pencil eyes pinned to the doorway. Well, she asked as soon as Claire appeared. They want me to come back, Claire said. And Ellie said. And I told them no, Claire said. Ellie blinked. Does that mean we are poor now? She asked. We are not rich, Claire said. We were not rich before. You turned down a lot of money, Ellie said. She had heard enough of the conversation to know that much. I turned down going back to a place that threw me out and only opened the door when people yelled at them, Claire said, even if they apologized. Ellie considered this. Do you have another place to go? She asked. Not yet, Claire said. But I'm going to find one. Ellie nodded once as if that settled it. I can draw more hearts and sell them, she said. 50 cents each. Claire laughed genuinely, this time the sound loosening something in her chest. Keep that plan on standby, she said. She spent the rest of the day sending a few more job applications, deleting draft emails. She did not like the tone of and making a simple dinner out of what was left in the pantry. The next morning, she woke with the odd clarity that comes after a hard choice. The bills were still there. The uncertainty had not vanished. But a different kind of weight had lifted. Late that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. It was firm and measured, not the quick rap of a delivery driver. Claire wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened it. Logan stood on the mat, the same plain shirt and jeans as before. The bandage at his collarbone had shrunk to a smaller square. Beside him stood a man she did not know. He was in his 50s, sunlines etched around his eyes, hair more silver than dark. He wore a collared shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. His posture had the subtle straightness Claire recognized from people who had spent 3 decades being told to stand that way. Afternoon, Ms. Mercer, Logan said. Hope we caught you at a decent time. You caught me between dishes and reminding a 9-year-old that homework exists, she said. So as decent as it gets. Ellie appeared at her shoulder, bare feet silent on the floor. You are not falling down this time, she told Logan. Trying to keep that as a once-in-a-lifetime event, he said. He nodded toward his companion. This is Colonel Andrew Barrett Ussey, Logan said. He runs something I thought you should hear about. Claire stepped aside to let them in. The apartment felt even smaller, with another adult in it, but Barrett carried his presence in a way that did not press. Ma'am, he said, giving a small nod. Thank you for letting us intrude. The kitchen table was the only place to sit. Claire swept Ellie's colored pencils into a neat pile and pulled out the chairs. Logan took one. Barrett remained standing for a moment, then set a slim leather folder on the table and opened it. A map of the world was clipped inside. Red and blue pins dotted it. Haiti, Puerto Rico, parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, coastal towns whose names Claire had seen only in headlines. I oversee a program called the Global Crisis Medicine Initiative, Barrett said. We partner civilian medical professionals with military and NGO teams, disaster zones, conflict areas, places that have hospitals only on paper. Claire looked from the map to his face. And what does that have to do with my apartment in South Austin? She asked. Mr. Hayes told me about Dallas-Fort Worth, Barrett said, and about what happened afterward. Logan sat quietly, letting the colonel take the lead. We stay alive in my line of work because people act in the first 10 seconds, Barrett went on. Not in the 10th minute. That is what your colleagues in San Antonio said you did. I saw someone without a pulse, Claire said. I did what I have been trained to do. Plenty of people have the same training, Barrett said. Not all of them move. He tapped the map lightly. We send people into places where the first 10 seconds can decide the fate of a village, not just one man, in an airport, he said. We train medics who will go on to treat casualties in arenas that make a crowded ER look luxurious. We need nurses who do not freeze when the script runs out. He slid a second document from the folder and turned it around so the writing faced her. It was a program overview. Under objectives, it listed deployment rotations, training modules, partnerships. Under qualifications, it listed years of experience, specialties. Someone had circled the line, emergency medicine background, strongly preferred. We can offer a position on our stateside training team initially, Barrett said, with the option for short deployments once you are comfortable. 2 weeks here and there. No one is asking you to vanish for 6 months. He glanced toward Ellie as he said it. Compensation is here, he added, tapping the lower section. Claire read the numbers. Her eyebrows rose despite herself. It was more than St. Gabriel had ever paid her. There was a section about housing stipends during rotations, another about education grants for dependents. Education for kids can be expensive, Barrett said. We try to make sure our people are not choosing between doing this work and sending their children to school. Ellie had been following along without pretending not to. What does deployment mean? She asked. It means your mom might travel to places after storms or earthquakes to help people who got hurt, Barrett said. He kept his voice level, neither talking down to her nor over her head. Sometimes she would train other people how to help. But she comes back, Ellie said. Always, Barrett said. We do not write orders that ignore families. Claire let her fingers rest on the edge of the paper. It sounds like a recruitment speech, she said. It is, Barrett said. The difference is that you are interviewing us as much as we are interviewing you. She looked at Logan. You think I belong in this? She asked. I think you already live in it, he said. You just have not had the badge yet. The room was quiet for a moment, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Claire thought of the ER at St. Gabriel, the bright lights and the controlled chaos. She thought of the airport floor, the feel of ribs under her palms. She thought of the job listings. She had been scrolling each one a smaller version of what she had already done. Her gaze went to the map again. The pins did not shimmer or call to her. They simply sat there, small markers of places where the world had cracked open. What is the catch? She asked. The work is hard, Barrett said. The hours are long. The conditions are not pretty. Sometimes you will have to tell people you cannot do more than you already have. Sometimes you will be the first one they have seen who can do anything at all. That is not new, she said. He nodded once. I do not care what St. Gabriel wrote in their file, he said. From where we sit, what you did in Dallas is exactly what we look for. Ellie slid her hand onto her mother's arm. You always tell me to be brave, Ellie said softly. You are allowed to do it too. Claire swallowed. Can I think about it? She asked. You would worry me if you did not, Barrett said. My contact information is on the last page. We have a training block starting in 3 weeks. If you decide this is for you, we will make room. He closed the folder and left it on the table. When they stood to go, Logan lingered near the door. You said no to going back, he said. I heard that from a friend inside. News travels fast, she said. In my world, line of sight matters, he said. I like knowing you are walking toward something, not just away. She looked at the folder, then at him. I am considering it, she said. He smiled, a small, tired thing that reached his eyes. Good, he said. After they left, Claire sat at the table with the folder open in front of her. Ellie pulled her chair closer so their shoulders touched. On the map, one of the pins marked a coastal town buffeted by storms almost every year. Another marked a place where the ground had shaken so hard that buildings had folded in on themselves like paper. Ellie placed her fingertip gently on one of them. "If you go there," she said, "you will need a lot of hearts on your suitcase." "That's so," Claire asked. "So people know you are the heart lady," Ellie said. The thought made Claire smile in spite of the knot in her stomach. "We might have to buy more markers," she said. "We can," Ellie said. "They are cheaper than the electric bill." Claire laughed again, then grew quiet. The offer from St. Gabriel sat in her email cooling. The offer from Barrett lay warm under her hands. She knew with a calm she did not expect which one lined up with the person she had been on the floor of Terminal B. The decision settled in on a Tuesday morning. Claire woke before her alarm, the sky outside still gray. For a few seconds, she lay still, watching the faint shadow of the ceiling fan. Her heart beat under her ribs, steady and ordinary. She could feel her pulse in her neck when she turned her head. The folder from Barrett sat on the nightstand. She reached for it, ran her fingers along the edge, then flipped it open one more time. The numbers were the same. The language had not softened overnight. The map still showed the same small pins. There was no new information, only a different willingness inside her to accept what was already there. In the kitchen, Ellie was sitting at the table in her pajamas, legs tucked up reading a library book. A bowl of cereal slowly turned soggy beside her elbow. "Morning," Ellie said without looking up. "Morning," Claire said. She poured herself coffee that was a little older than it should have been and sat across from her daughter. "I have been thinking," she said. "About which cereal is less gross?" Ellie asked. "About the job Colonel Barrett talked about," Claire said. Ellie closed the book on her finger to keep her place. "Are you going to do it?" she asked. "I am leaning hard in that direction," Claire said. "But I wanted to know how it sounds in your head." Ellie considered. "You will have to go places that are broken," she said. "And you will help, then you will come home, and then maybe you will go again." "That is what I understood." "That is a good summary," Claire said. "Will I move schools?" Ellie asked. "Not for this," Claire said. "The training is in Colorado, but they build it in blocks. I would travel there for a few weeks at a time, then come back. The deployments are short, 2, 3 weeks. We would keep this apartment. You would stay with Aunt Carla for the training parts, or here with someone we trust if Carla cannot do it." Ellie nodded slowly. "You already work nights," she said. "You already leave when people are scared." "True," Claire said. "This is like that," Ellie said. "Just farther away." Claire watched her daughter's face. There was no excitement there, but no panic either, just careful weighing. "If you hate it, can you stop?" Ellie asked. "I would have that option," Claire said. "This is not the military. They are not going to drag me onto a plane against my will." Ellie traced the rim of her cereal bowl. "I want you to be where you are not getting in trouble for helping," she said. "That is my vote." Claire felt something tighten behind her ribs. "Okay then," she said. She reached across the table. Ellie set the book aside and placed her smaller hand in her mother's. "Team decision," Claire said. "Team decision," Ellie agreed. Later that morning, Claire dialed the number on the last page of the folder. "Barrett," he answered. "This is Claire Mercer," she said. "I would like to accept the position, on the training team to start." There was a brief pause, then a quiet satisfaction in his voice. "Glad to hear it," he said. "You are not going to regret this." "I reserve the right to complain on long days," she said. "That is part of the package," he said. "I will have our admin send you the onboarding documents. Training block starts in 3 weeks. We will cover travel and lodging for that period." "Thank you," she said. "Thank you," he replied, for saying yes. The documents arrived in her email by late afternoon. Contracts, waivers, tax forms, a schedule for the first training cycle at a facility outside Colorado Springs, a flight booking with her name on it. She signed where they indicated and sent them back before she could talk herself in circles. The next days filled with lists. Not the vague kind you write on napkins, but concrete ones in her notebook. Talk to Carla about covering Ellie. Update school about temporary guardian. Cancel utilities that could be paused during training weeks. Buy a suitcase that did not threaten to lose a wheel at the first rough surface. On the last evening before she left, Ellie spread markers and stickers over the floor. "We have to decorate," she said, "or your bag will get lost with all the boring ones." She carefully drew hearts in different sizes along the edge of the new, dark blue suitcase. Red, pink, purple. Some had little lightning bolts inside them. "What is that about?" Claire asked, pointing at the bolts. "Ms. Lopez says hearts are electric," Ellie said. "We are just being accurate." When they were finished, the suitcase looked like it belonged to someone who refused to pretend travel was neat. At the airport, as they waited at the security line, Claire felt an odd echo. The last time she had walked under the high ceilings of a departure hall, she had stepped straight into someone else's emergency. This time her hands rested on plastic handles, one on the suitcase, one on Ellie's shoulder. "You will be careful," Ellie said, sounding older than 9. "As careful as I can be without quitting," Claire said. "You will call," Ellie said. "Every day," Claire promised. "Even if it is just to say that my feet hurt." Ellie wrapped her arms tight around her. Claire bent to hold on just as tightly. When she walked through the security checkpoint, she looked back once. Ellie stood with Carla by the rail, one arm lifted, the other pressed against her stomach, as if holding something in place. In Colorado, the air felt thinner. The training facility sat near the foothills' low buildings and gravel lots, with the mountains rising behind them like a painted backdrop. The morning she reported in the sky was a clear, unforgiving blue. Inside, the main hallway smelled like coffee metal and something faintly medicinal. Not quite a hospital, not quite a barracks. Barrett met her in the lobby, a clipboard under his arm. "Glad you made it," he said. "How is the altitude treating you?" "I got winded carrying my bag up one flight of stairs," she said. "So we are off to a strong start." He smiled. "You will adjust," he said. Let me show you the classrooms." The first week was a flood. They started with lectures. Not the sleepy kind from nursing school, but compact briefings from people who had done the things they described. A surgeon who showed photos from earthquake zones where operating tables were folding cots. A public health specialist who talked about cholera outbreaks in tents. Then came drills. They built a mock field hospital in a big open bay. Folding cots lined up in rows. Supply crates stacked high. Plastic mannequins lay under rough blankets, each one programmed to simulate different vital sign patterns. "Think of the ER if someone pulled it apart and dropped half the pieces," an instructor said. "You are still the one with the hands." Claire fell into roles automatically. Triage, airway, wound care. She learned new tricks too. How to improvise a splint with cardboard when all the proper braces had been used. How to sterilize instruments with far less equipment than she would have considered acceptable in Austin. In one evolution, they simulated a storm hitting a coastal town. A recorded wind howled through speakers. Lights flickered. Instructors shouted new casualties into the room in real time. 8-year-old trouble breathing pulled from water, someone called. Pregnant woman, 30 weeks abdominal pain. Head injury unconscious, possible spinal. The group had to decide quickly, and with imperfect information, where to place their limited capacity. Claire found herself arguing for a teenage boy with a crushed hand. "If we do not fix this, he loses function," she said, fingers pressing along the pretend injury. "His vitals are stable," another trainee said. "We have a kid whose airway is closing." She stepped back, swallowed her instinct to fight, and moved to help with the child instead. At the end of each day, her body ached. Her hands smelled like latex and sweat. When she closed her eyes in the cramped dorm room, she saw cots and salt water and too much need. Most nights, she called Ellie before she fell asleep. "Today we pretended a storm knocked over a town," she said one evening lying on the narrow bed. "You like pretending that?" Ellie asked. "I like being ready for when it is not pretending," Claire said. "Did you get to be the boss nurse?" Ellie asked. "Sometimes," Claire said. "Sometimes I let someone else boss me. Makes a change." In the second week, Barrett pulled her aside after a particularly long day of trauma simulations. "You are picking this up fast," he said. "I have been working in controlled chaos for 12 years, she said. "You just made it louder." "You also make the decisions quicker than some of the physicians," he said. "They do not always like that, but they need it." She lifted her shoulders. "I work with what is in front of me," she said. At the end of the training block, Barrett gathered the group in a classroom that still smelled faintly of dry erase markers and sweat. "We have an opening on a short deployment," he said. "Hurricane season is doing its thing down in the Gulf. A coastal parish in Louisiana took a hard hit. Power is out. Hospitals on backup only. Local clinics are flooded. We are sending a small team in support. 2 weeks." He scanned the room. "We need 3 nurses," he said. "If your life circumstances do not allow you to go, say so. No penalties. If you want in, come see me after this." Claire felt her heart thump a little harder. The image of the map in Barrett's folder flickered in her mind. One of the pins had been set along that exact coast. On the break, she found a quiet corner and called Ellie. "They are putting together a team for Louisiana," she said. 2 weeks. I would leave in 4 days. Carson is able to keep you and his boys while I'm gone." "Are there storms still?" Ellie asked. "There is mess," Claire said. "That is why they need help." "Will they have phones there?" Ellie asked. "Some," Claire said. "I will send messages as much as I can. Maybe calls. There might be days when it is hard." Ellie was silent for a few seconds. "Is there someone else who could go instead?" she asked. "Yes," Claire said. "Always. That is true of everything." Ellie let out a breath. "I want you to want to go," she said. "Not feel like you have to." "I want to," Claire said. "And I also feel like I have to. Both can be true." "Okay," Ellie said. Her voice sounded small but steady. "Then go. I will draw more hearts." The flight into Louisiana skimmed over water that still looked churned up from the storm. From the small plane window, Claire saw blue tarps where roofs had been. Trees snapped clean roads that stopped into flooded fields. The humidity hit her the second she stepped down onto the tarmac. The air felt thick and warm, carrying the smell of mud diesel and something sour that she knew would be standing water. They set up their base in a high school gym on slightly higher ground. Cots again this time for real bodies. Volunteers and locals flowed through, carrying boxes, handing out bottled water, laying out donated clothes along the bleachers. On the first day, a line formed at the intake table. Elderly men with blood pressure concerns, children with rashes from wading through tainted puddles, a young woman with a deep gash on her shin from a piece of roofing metal. Claire fell into motion. "Name," she asked, voice calm. "Any allergies? When did this start?" Her hands moved without wasted motion, gloves on wound, cleaned bandage applied. Next. Mid-afternoon, a shout rose from outside. "Someone went down out back," a volunteer yelled through the gym doors. "By the generators!" Claire looked at the physician she had been working with. "Got this?" she asked, nodding toward the patient on the cot. "Go," he said. She ran through the side door into the heat. Behind the gym, near the humming generators, a group of people clustered around a man on the ground. He was in his 40s, work boots, splashed with mud shirt stuck to his chest with sweat. His skin had a gray tinge under the sunburn. One of the local volunteers knelt beside him, patting his face with a rag. "He was checking the fuel," the volunteer said when she arrived. "Just dropped." Claire pushed in. "Sir," she said, kneeling, "can you hear me?" No answer. She felt at his neck. Her fingers met warm skin, and beneath it nothing. No push, no rhythm. She did not look up. She did not think about policy or cameras or what anyone else might say. "Get the kit," she said. "Call the doc. Tell him we have a cardiac arrest behind the gym." The words came out calm and clipped. Her heart thudded faster, but not in panic, in recognition. She laced her fingers and found the center of his chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. The ground under her knees was uneven. Pebbles dug through the fabric of her pants. Sweat ran down the grooves of her spine. The air felt like it was wrapping itself around her lungs. She pressed anyway. Around her, the sounds of the storm's aftermath faded. No more humming generators, no more voices. Only the thud of her palms, the count in her head, the memory of another floor, another body. Her world narrowed to the weight under her hands and the silent demand that it not be lost. Later, when the man's chest rose on its own and his eyes fluttered when the defibrillator sat unused beside them and the doctor arrived to take over, Claire sat back on her heels for a second. Her hands hovered above his sternum, ready to press again if he slipped. They did not have to. She looked down at her palms. Dirt clung in streaks to her gloves. Her fingers shook fine and controlled. Someone touched her shoulder. "You all right?" the doctor asked. "Yes," she said. She meant it. That night, she sat on the gym floor with her back against the wall, phone warm in her hand. The signal flickered, then steadied long enough to send a message. "Pulled a man back today. Behind a high school instead of an airport. No one fired me." She hesitated, then forwarded the same message to another contact. Logan's reply came 20 minutes later. "Good. Keep making my record look lazy." 6 months later, the air outside Fort Bragg tasted like pine and dust. The training facility sat on the edge of the base, a low cluster of buildings that looked plain from the road. Inside, the halls were lined with maps, faded photographs, and whiteboards covered in acronyms. In one of the largest rooms, 30 folding chairs faced a row of medical mannequins on tables. The overhead lights were too bright. Someone in the back shifted boots, squeaking on the polished floor. Claire stood at the front, one hand resting on a plastic sternum. The trainees in the chairs wore a mix of uniforms and t-shirts. Some had the tan lines of people who had just come back from somewhere hot. Some looked barely old enough to shave. All of them watched her. "This is where you lose people," she said, tapping the center of the mannequin's chest with 2 fingers. "Not out there in the chaos, not in the big decisions, right here in the first 10 seconds. Her voice carried without shouting. Years of speaking over monitors and crying patients had trained it well. "A collapse looks like confusion," she went on. "Crowd backs away. People shout. Somebody pulls out a phone to record. You are the one who moves in." She let that sit for a breath. "You check for response," she said. "If there is none, you check for breathing and a pulse. If those are not there, you do not wait for permission. You do not wait for a medic bag. You put your hands on the chest and you start compressions." She laced her fingers together, placed the heel of her hand on the mannequin, and locked her elbows. "Watch," she said. She began to press. 1, 2, 3, 4. The plastic gave under her palms with a small click each time. The sound was swallowed by the room, but the rhythm was familiar. A few of the trainees unconsciously nodded along. "Hard enough to move blood," she said between counts. "Fast enough to matter. At least 2 inches down, chest fully back up. You will crack ribs. That is not failure. It is physics. She reached 30, then paused. You do this until someone with more equipment shows up, she said. Or until the chest starts rising on its own, or until you physically cannot push anymore, and you switch with someone else. A hand in the second row went up. What if you are alone? The young man asked. His neck was sunburned where his collar ended. Then you keep going, she said, and you hope someone with eyes and a phone has called for help. But you do not wait for them to decide you are serious. She stepped back. All right, she said. Pair up. One of you on compressions, one of you watching technique. You will all get tired faster than you think. That is the point. Chairs scraped, boots thudded. The trainees moved to the tables in 2s and 3s. Within a minute, the room filled with the soft, uneven cadence of 30 different sets of hands learning to drive life into unresponsive bodies. Claire walked between them, correcting posture, nudging elbows, adjusting hand placement. Lock your arms, not your wrists, she told one. Use your shoulders. Gravity is your friend. Let it help. Count out loud, she told another. I know it feels silly. Do it anyway. It keeps you honest, and it keeps everyone on the same page. A woman in the back worked in determined silence, jaw-tight compressions, quick but shallow. Slower, Claire said, gently placing her own hands over the woman's for a moment. Deeper. Feel it. The goal is not to look busy. It is to move blood. After a while, the rough edges of the counts began to line up. Voices rose and fell in near unison. 28, 29, 30. They sounded like a strange kind of choir. Break, she called. Shake out your arms. Drink water. Then we will rotate. They stepped back from the mannequins, shoulders rolling, fingers flexing. Some laughed softly. A few looked unsettled, the reality behind the plastic leaking in. Claire let them go for a moment and moved to the side of the room. On the wall near the door, a new brass plaque caught the light. It was not large, but it was polished until the letters stood out. Mercer Training Suite, in recognition of emergency nurses who run toward the crisis. Seeing her name there still felt strange, like spotting herself in a mirror she had not expected. Jenna had sent her a photo the day it went up, a blurry snapshot texted between shifts. Look what you did, the message read. That same week, another image had popped into her inbox, a corkboard in the lobby of St. Gabriel. On it, a laminated sheet with bold print at the top. Off-duty, medical response policy Mercer clause. The text underneath outlined support for staff who rendered emergency aid outside the hospital. Legal backing PR statements, counseling if needed. At the bottom, someone had added a small heart in pen. Jenna's note had read, we had to argue about the name. We won. Claire had stared at the photo for a long time. Then she had set the phone aside and gone back to packing for Louisiana. All right, she called to the room. Switch roles. Those who are watching are up. Those who are compressing are coaches now. They shuffled positions. The rest of the day dropped into a familiar rhythm. Lectures, practicals, a session on triaging mass casualties when the numbers did not line up with the supplies, a briefing on cultural considerations when moving through communities that had seen too many uniforms. By late afternoon, the sun had shifted low enough that the hallways picked up a warm glow. Claire stepped outside with a folder under her arm and a paper cup of coffee that had long since cooled. The air held a hint of coming rain mixed with the scent of pine. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She balanced the coffee on the low wall by the entrance and checked the screen. A video request from Ellie. She accepted. Ellie's face appeared slightly fisheye from the front camera. Hi, Ellie said. Look. She tilted the screen to show a soccer field. Kids in mismatched jerseys clustered around a ball. A coach blew a whistle in the background. The sky behind them was a soft, early evening blue. You are outside, Claire said, and upright. I scored, Ellie said. A real goal, not the accidental kind where it bounces off your foot. That is huge, Claire said. Did anyone record it? No, Ellie said, but it is in my brain. Best archive there is, Claire said. Ellie turned the camera back to her own face. How are the fake people? She asked. Plastic, Claire said, very patient. Do they have hearts? Ellie asked. They pretend to, Claire said. The students provide the beating part. Ellie nodded as if that answered a question she had not asked out loud. You look tired, she said. So do you? Claire said. Soccer will do that to you. You finish soon? Ellie asked. I have 2 more days here, Claire said. Then I come home for a bit. We can make pancakes and not talk about emergencies. Ellie smiled, the gap in her front teeth still there for now. Deal, she said. Love you. Love you too, Claire said. The screen went dark. The reflection of her own face stared back for a second in the smudged glass. She picked up the untouched coffee and started toward the small cluster of dorm rooms where the visiting staff stayed. Logan was sitting on the concrete steps when she rounded the corner, a to-go box balanced on his knees. He wore a faded t-shirt and cargo pants, his posture loose for once. The scar near his collarbone peeked from beneath the neckline, a pale square under tanned skin. "You look like something the med bay would send back," he said. "I have been fighting plastic patients all day," she said. "They are relentless." He held out the box. "Peace offering," he said. "Someone dropped off barbecue for the instructors. Thought you might want protein that did not come from a vending machine." The smell of smoked meat and pepper hit her. Her stomach responded before her brain did. "You just became my favorite person in this zip code," she said. They sat side by side on the steps, shoulders almost touching. The air cooled as the sun slid lower. Crickets started up in the grass, beyond the concrete. "You teaching SEALs again tomorrow?" she asked, picking up a piece of brisket with her fingers. "Combat medics," he said. "Some will end up attached to teams. Some will be the only medical person in a village 6 hours from anything with lights." "Fun crowd," she said. "They listen," he said. "At least when I tell them about the part where the heart stops and nobody is there yet." He tapped his chest lightly. "I use myself as a bad example," he said. Guy who thought he was bulletproof until his own wiring disagreed. She chewed, then swallowed. "How is that going?" she asked. "Waking up and still being here," he said. "Stranger than I thought, quieter too." The cicadas filled a pause for them. "I read about what your old hospital did," he added after a moment. "The clause, the apology." "So did half the country," she said. "Apparently." "You okay with your name on their board?" he asked. She thought about it. "I am okay with the next nurse not having to choose between doing the right thing and keeping a job," she said. "They can keep the font." He nodded, accepting that. A breeze caught the corner of a napkin and flipped it. Claire placed her hand on it, palm flat. Logan watched the motion. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "That morning at Dallas, knowing everything that came after." She did not have to think long. "No," she said. He tilted his head. "Not even a little when the rent notice shows up," he said. "That is for me to solve," she said. "That guy on the floor did not ask to be part of my math problem." He was quiet for a breath. "I am glad you do not regret it," he said. Selfishly. "Selfish is you standing here in front of me instead of in a photo in a frame," she said. "I will allow it." He smiled small and real. "You ever think about how weird this is?" he asked. "If your flight had been 15 minutes earlier, if I had stopped to buy a magazine, we do not meet." "I try not to do too much of the what if," she said. "It tangles my brain." "Fair," he said. They finished the food, passing bites back and forth, arguing lightly over which side was better. When the box was empty and the sky had faded to a deep blue, the lights inside the training building flicked on behind them with a hum. Logan rested his forearms on his knees. "I want to keep being there," he said. "Not just as the guy whose heart you rebooted once. I like this version better. The one where we exist in the same room and eat brisket that is probably bad for our arteries." She looked at him at the way he chose each word as if he were disarming something. "I do too," she said. Her hand lay on the step between them, fingers spread. His hand rested near, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth. He shifted his pinky until it brushed against hers. The contact was light. No big gesture. Just a small, steady point where two people who had met in the worst possible way acknowledged that this was also real. She did not pull away. They sat like that until the air grew cool enough that the skin on her arms prickled. "I have an early briefing," she said, finally standing. "Those fake patients will not yell at themselves." "You would find a way," he said. He rose with her. For a second, it looked like he might step closer. Instead, he nodded once and headed toward his own room, hands in his pockets. The next morning, the training facility buzzed early. Claire rolled her suitcase down the hall, the wheels bumping lightly over the seams in the floor. Hearts in red and purple marched along its side, some with little lightning bolts cutting through them. The handle was warm in her grip. In the lobby, Barrett stood by the door, a clipboard under his arm again. "Ready?" he asked. "As I will ever be," she said. "Medics are waiting in classroom 3, he said. "They want to run the scenario one more time before they ship out." "Then we should not keep them," she said. She glanced up. The automatic doors at the front of the building shone in the morning light. The glass was so clean, it reflected the hallway behind her. She could see herself in it for a second. A woman in practical clothes, hair, pulled back, face lined with tiredness, and something steady beneath it. A suitcase at her side, covered in hearts. Her reflection stepped forward as she did. The sensors caught her movement. The doors slid open without a sound. Inside, somewhere down the hall, a monitor in a simulation bay beeped in a slow, even rhythm. In the classroom ahead, a group of future medics clapped their hands together in time as they practiced compressions. Claire walked through the doorway into the bright morning, the hearts on her suitcase catching the light as the glass closed softly behind her. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.